Welcome back to Cyber Mornings Daily.
Great to be here.
Today we're diving into, well, a fascinating trio of digital dramas, really.
Yeah, three quite different stories hitting the wires.
Exactly. Think of these less like just headlines and more like, I don't know, mini thrillers unfolding online. Each one shows a different angle on cyber threats.
Uh-huh.
We wanted to unpack what went down, but more importantly, get into the technical twists and what they actually mean.
Definitely. It's the how and the why behind these incidents that's really key, isn't it? Helps understand the bigger picture.
For sure.
We've got this sneaky issue with Webex invites, then a big data incident at a major entertainment company,
Right.
and finally a kind of bizarre hiccup with Zoom and, well, the internet's plumbing.
Okay, let's jump right in then. Story number one.
Mm-hmm.
This high-severity vulnerability in Cisco Webex, something lots of us use every single day.
Yeah, exactly. And it involves those meeting invite links we all click on.
So what was the actual problem? How could a link be dangerous?
Well, the flaw was deep inside something called the custom URL parser.
Okay.
That's the bit of WebEx software that, reads and understands those web addresses that launch your meetings.
Uh-huh.
And the issue was it wasn't properly checking everything in that link, what we call insufficient input validation.
Insufficient input validation. Sounds technical, but break that down. Like, it wasn't checking the ID properly at the door.
That's a great analogy, exactly. Because it wasn't strict enough about verifying what was in the link, an attacker could craft a special malicious link.
Craft a link.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this wasn't just about sending you to a dodgy website, was it? This was worse.
Oh, much worse. By clicking this specially crafted link, you could unknowingly make your computer download arbitrary files.
Arbitrary files.
Yeah.
So not just like a bad PDF or something?
No. Think more like a backdoor. This lets attackers drop pretty much anything onto your system. Malicious software, basically.
And if they can download any file,
Mm-hmm.
what's the worst case scenario there? That sounds really bad.
The nightmare scenario is remote code execution, RCE.
Right.
Once their malicious file is on your machine, they could potentially run any command they want.
With my user privileges.
With the same level of access you have. Yeah. Imagine them grabbing bank details, installing spyware, using your machine in attacks.
Ah, complete control just from one link. Yeah, that's chilling.
It really is.
So who was actually at risk here? Was it just Windows or?
Nope, that's the worrying part. It affected all operating systems. If you were running a vulnerable version of the Cisco Webex app.
Which versions were those?
Okay, so it was versions 44.5 and earlier.
Mm.
Also 44.7 before the fix came out.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, version 44.6 was vulnerable too up until they released update 44.6.30589.
So quite a few versions then. If you were on any of those, you were exposed.
Potentially, yeah.
What was the fix? Could you just be careful about links or did you have to update?
This is crucial. Cisco was very explicit. There were no workarounds, none.
Okay.
The only solution was to update your WebEx app. Get to version 44.6.2.30589 or, even better, 44.8 or later. Those are safe.
Right. Non-negotiable then. Update your software, always.
Always.
Was there any maybe silver lining? Did Cisco see this being used in attacks?
Well, as of their report, their security teams hadn't actually seen this specific vulnerability being exploited out in the wild.
Okay. That's something, I guess.
It is, but it doesn't mean it couldn't happen. These things can get weaponized fast. Proactive patching is just essential. Can't stress that enough.
Absolutely agree. Okay, so that's WebEx, a potential threat in everyday software. Our next story shifts gears a bit to a confirmed data breach. A big one. Legends International.
Yeah, Legends. Maybe not a household name for everyone, but their impact is huge. They manage massive entertainment and sports venues globally.
Like which ones? Give us some examples.
Oh, think SoFi Stadium, One World Observatory, AT&T Stadium, even huge soccer stadiums in Europe, like the Santiago Bernabeu and Camp Nou.
Wow. Okay, they're a serious player.
A behemoth. And they just got bigger. They acquired ASM Global recently, too.
So a company with that kind of reach, what happened?
So back in November 2024, they spotted unauthorized activity in their IT systems. Standard breach language, usually.
Intruder alert.
Pretty much. They brought in experts, investigated, and confirmed that, yep, attackers got in and managed to extract personal data files.
Extract data. Do you know what kind of data? Like credit cards, emails, passwords. It's usual suspects.
The initial notice didn't specify the exact types of data. That's pretty common early on. The investigation might still be pinning that down.
Right.
But given their scale employees, visitors to all of those venues, They likely handle a ton of different kinds of personal info.
So with, what was it, over 350 venues on 5 continents, the number of people potentially affected, that could be enormous.
It really could be significant, yeah. It highlights just how much data these big organizations hold, a huge responsibility.
What did Legends do in response? What steps did they take?
Well, they said they did have security measures in place beforehand, and they've implemented more since securing their systems. And they're offering the standard 24 months of identity theft detection services through Experian to those affected.
Right, the credit monitoring. Did they say if any of the stolen data has actually been misused yet?
They mentioned they weren't aware of any misuse yet, but, they're rightly telling people to be vigilant, keep an eye on your accounts, credit reports, that sort of thing.
Good advice, always.
Yeah.
One thing that struck me, though, no ransomware group has taken credit. Isn't that a bit unusual for a big data grab like this?
It is interesting, yeah. That's a key detail, the fact no group has claimed it.
Well, it raises questions.
Like what?
Maybe the motive wasn't immediate ransom. Perhaps it was data theft for other purposes, espionage, selling it on dark markets later. We don't know. It also means who did it and exactly how they did it is still kind of a mystery. Adds another layer to the whole thing. What else could they want that data for, right? Makes you think.
It really does. Okay, so moving from a deliberate data theft to our final story. This was different again. It shows how even non-malicious errors in the Internet's core systems can cause major headaches. The Zoom outage.
Ah, yes, that brief moment of panic for many. April 16th, 2025. Suddenly, people in the U.S., internationally too, just couldn't use Zoom.
Which for a lot of businesses means work just stops.
Instantly, yeah.
So what was the technical reason? Did Zoom servers just fall over?
Surprisingly, no. Zoom's own systems, including their DNS servers, the domain name system, that internet phone book we rely on.
Right, translate zoom.us into an IP address.
Exactly. Their DNS was working fine. The actual problem was a server block placed on the main zoom.us domain, and it was placed by GoDaddy Registry.
GoDaddy Registry, not GoDaddy the web host, but the registry behind the scenes. How does that happen? How do they just block Zoom?
Well, it seems it boiled down to a communication error. A mistake in communication between Zoom's domain registrar, the company they use to manage their domain name called MarkMonitor, and GoDaddy Registry. Somehow, that miscommunication led GoDaddy Registry to mistakenly apply this block to zoom.us, like an accidental digital roadblock was thrown up.
So not a hack on Zoom, not a DDoS attack, just whoops, wrong switch, flip somewhere in the back office.
Essentially, yeah. And because that main domain was blocked at the registry level, anyone trying to start a meeting, join one, schedule one,
Their computer couldn't look up the address.
couldn't find it in the phone book, exactly. So no connection.
But didn't they say if you were already in a meeting, you were fine? That seems weird.
Yeah, that's because your computer had already done the lookup and established the connection to the meeting servers before the block went into effect. That existing connection stayed live.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
The problem was initiating new lookups or connections.
So how do they fix it? Must have been all hands on deck.
You bet. Zoom, MarkMonitor, and GoDaddy Registry worked together pretty quickly, identified what happened, and got that server block removed.
And then, poof, Zoom worked again.
Well, mostly. Access was restored once the block was lifted, but...
But it wasn't instant for everyone, right? I remember seeing reports of lingering issues.
Exactly, and that's because of DNS caching.
Caching, right? The internet remembers things for a while.
Precisely. DNS information gets saved, temporarily cached all over the internet to speed things up. Routers, your own computer, they all keep little notes of recently looked up addresses.
Like jotting down a phone number.
Perfect analogy. But when the real address information changes, like the block being removed, all those cached copies need to expire before they fetch the new correct info.
And that time it takes is the TTL. Time to live.
That's the one. So it just took a little while for the fix to propagate everywhere as those caches timed out.
Okay, that clears that up. So what's being done to stop this kind of accidental domain takedown happening again? Seems like a pretty big single point of failure.
Yeah, you don't want your entire service reliant on avoiding a clerical error somewhere else. Zoom's worked with GoDaddy Registry and MarkMonitor to put in extra safeguards. Better processes, for one, but also, technically, they've put a registry lock on the zoom.us domain.
Registry lock.
It's like an extra layer of security. Makes it much harder for unauthorized changes, including server block commands, to be applied to the domain. Like adding a deadbolt requires more steps to make critical changes.
Sounds sensible. Now, for users who are still stuck after the main fix, was there anything they could do?
Yeah, the advice was to flush your local DNS cache.
Ah, tell your computer to forget what it thinks it knows and go get the latest info.
Exactly. Force it to clear out the old, potentially wrong cached record and fetch the fresh one. They gave instructions for Windows and Mac users on how to do it.
So a bit of tech self-help could speed things up. Fascinating stuff. 3 really different stories today, but each one, yeah, highlights a unique challenge online.
They really do paint a picture of the diverse landscape, don't they?
Hmm.
You've got sophisticated software flaws like Webex,
Uh-huh.
then major data breaches hitting big companies like Legends, and then these fundamental infrastructure hiccups like the Zoom DNS issue. It's all part of the cyber world we live in.
And the common theme, maybe, is just awareness
Mm,
and being proactive.
I think so. Keeping software updated, that Webex story screams that, right? Especially for critical tools.
Definitely.
And just being aware of your data, who has it, and what to do if a breach happens, like with Legends.
Yeah,
Even the Zoom thing, while not malicious, it kind of reminds you how interconnected everything is. Understanding a little bit about how the internet actually works can be really helpful sometimes.
true. These are initial reports, of course. The
Yeah.
full stories might still evolve. But it definitely makes you think about your own online habits, your own security.
Absolutely. What could impact you? What questions does this raise? It's all part of learning and navigating this digital world.
Couldn't agree more. And we'll keep diving into these stories right here on Cyber Mornings Daily.